Good morning, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about something fundamental, something that affects your relationships, your leadership, your career trajectory, and your ability to influence others, and that's respect. Now, respect isn't given freely. It's earned, it's built through consistent behavior over time, and it's directly tied to the neural circuits that people use to assess trust, status, and value in social interactions. Most people chase strategies to gain respect, like being more confident, assertive, or persuasive, but very few stop to ask what behaviors are actively costing me respect. So today we're going to look at 5 specific habits that most people overlook, yet they are quietly destroying their credibility and influence. And here's the key insight: removing these habits can be more powerful than adding new ones. Because in neuroscience, we know that eliminating a maladaptive behavior often leads to faster neural rewiring than trying to layer on a new habit. In other words, if you want to be respected, stop doing what's holding you back. Eliminating chronic excuses is one of the most powerful things you can do to command genuine respect. Excuses are easy to make, and in the moment, they might protect your ego or reduce short-term discomfort. But in the long run, they send a powerful message to the people around you and, more importantly, to your own nervous system. They signal a lack of ownership, a gap between intent and action, and a refusal to step into full accountability. From a neuroscience perspective, the brain thrives on feedback loops. When you take responsibility, you engage the prefrontal cortex, the area associated with executive function, planning, and decision-making. But when you make excuses, you offload responsibility and shift activation into the limbic system, which governs emotion and survival-based thinking. Over time, this trains your brain to default to avoidance rather than engagement. Chronic excuse-making erodes your credibility, often in subtle but deeply impactful ways. People may not call you out directly, but they remember the patterns. When you're late and blame traffic, when you miss deadlines and point to external circumstances, when you fail to deliver and blame a team member or a lack of time, others begin to see you as someone who can't be relied on. And that perception is incredibly difficult to reverse once it's established. Respect isn't just about performance, it's about character. It's about how you show up, how consistently you honor your commitments, and whether or not people believe you take full ownership of your actions and outcomes. Excuses also trap you in a psychological loop. Each time you rationalize a failure or deflect responsibility, you get a short-term dopamine reward. The brain perceives this as a successful escape from discomfort, and it reinforces the habit. But long-term, this undermines your growth. You never develop the capacity to face difficulty directly, to analyze what went wrong, and to course correct effectively. You lose access to adaptive learning, one of the core functions of neuroplasticity. The very act of making an excuse robs you of the data needed to improve. And in a world where adaptability and evolution are keys to leadership, that loss is massive. There's another layer to this, and it's about self-respect. Every time you make an excuse, you're sending yourself a message: I'm not in control. That message compounds over time, and the nervous system internalizes it. You begin to feel helpless, even in situations where you actually have power. It fosters a low-agency identity, and that identity gets embedded in your behavior, your language, even your posture and tone of voice. And people around you, whether they're conscious of it or not, can read that. Humans are wired to detect confidence and stability through microsignals, and when someone is constantly making excuses, those signals begin to disappear. Instead, you start to give off subtle cues of unreliability and emotional fragility. Now, eliminating excuses doesn't mean pretending everything is fine or ignoring genuine obstacles. It means shifting your internal narrative. Instead of "I couldn't do it," because you start asking, "What could I have done differently?" That single shift engages a completely different set of neural pathways. It turns failure into feedback. It activates the brain's problem-solving mechanisms. And it tells others that you're someone who takes ownership, even when things don't go as planned. That kind of mindset builds trust. It builds psychological safety. It builds the kind of respect that's not just surface level, but deep and lasting. The people who rise to the top in any domain, whether it's business, athletics, science, or leadership, are the ones who learn to eliminate excuses early. They understand that every excuse is a missed opportunity for growth. They understand that integrity starts with internal alignment. When you stop making excuses, you begin to hold yourself to a different standard. You begin to see setbacks as signals rather than threats. You become someone others can count on, not just because you succeed, but because you take full responsibility no matter what. Over-explaining yourself is one of those subtle behaviors that can seem harmless, even polite, but it often sends the exact opposite message of what you're trying to communicate. Most people over-explain because they want to be understood, validated, or accepted. They want to avoid conflict or preempt judgment, but in doing so, they dilute the power of their words and weaken their presence. From a neuroscience perspective, over-explaining is rooted in the brain's threat detection system, specifically the amygdala, which becomes activated when we perceive social risk or disapproval. When someone feels uncertain or insecure about how they'll be received, their brain shifts into a defensive mode, and one of the coping mechanisms is excessive justification. The person thinks, if I just explain it enough, they'll get it and won't judge me. But the reality is, the more you explain, the more you communicate doubt in your decision, doubt in your position, and even doubt in your worth. Respect is built through clarity and confidence, not by offering layers of unnecessary detail to justify your every move. When you speak with conviction, people trust you. When you feel the need to explain every nuance of why you did something or what you meant, it signals that you're uncertain about your own actions or words. Over time, this creates a pattern in people's minds. They may not even consciously register it, but subconsciously they start to categorize you as someone who second-guesses themselves, someone who needs permission, someone who lacks inner authority. And that's a problem, especially if you're trying to lead, influence, or command respect in high-stakes environments. The habit of over-explaining also interferes with efficient communication. Our brains are wired to prefer clarity. The prefrontal cortex, which handles reasoning and logic, operates best when it's not overloaded. When you pack your speech with excessive justifications or disclaimers, you force your listener to sift through extra cognitive noise to get to your main point. This mental fatigue makes it harder for them to stay engaged or even remember what you said. In contrast, when you deliver a concise, direct message, it creates mental sharpness. People remember it. They feel it. It lands with impact. That's how trust is built, by consistently speaking in ways that reflect thoughtfulness, clarity, and a firm grasp of your own reasoning. There's also a social dominance component to consider. In group dynamics, those who over-explain tend to unintentionally position themselves lower in the hierarchy. It's a behavioral signal that you're seeking approval or permission rather than standing firmly in your role. Think about the people who command natural respect in a room. They don't rush to defend every statement. They don't hedge their language with just maybe or I hope this makes sense. They speak from a place of internal alignment, and they let their words carry weight without needing to soften the edges. That's not arrogance, that's clarity paired with emotional regulation, and it's something that others pick up on immediately because humans are constantly scanning for signals of authority and competence, especially in moments of uncertainty or decision-making. Over-explaining also has a self-reinforcing effect on your identity. Each time you go out of your way to justify yourself unnecessarily, you reinforce a belief that your initial thought, choice, or action wasn't good enough on its own. Over time, this conditions your brain to believe that your value lies in being agreeable or making others comfortable, rather than standing firm in what you know to be true. This isn't just a psychological issue, it's a physiological one. You're literally wiring your nervous system to associate communication with anxiety and self-doubt. And the more you do that, the harder it becomes to access clear, confident expression in moments when it really matters. Removing this habit doesn't mean becoming cold or refusing to clarify when it's truly needed. It means getting comfortable with silence, with pauses, with letting your words stand on their own without rushing to fill the space that follows. It means trusting that your perspective is valid without having to cushion it with an entire backstory. It means speaking in a way that honors your own intellect and intention rather than constantly seeking reassurance. And the shift is both immediate and cumulative. The more you speak with clarity and restraint, the more others begin to treat you as someone whose words matter. They listen more carefully. They take you more seriously. They stop questioning your decisions because you've stopped questioning them yourself. Gossip and negative talk are among the most corrosive behaviors when it comes to earning and maintaining respect. They often masquerade as harmless conversation or shared connection, but beneath the surface, they signal something far more damaging. When someone engages in gossip, especially habitually, they're broadcasting a lack of boundaries, a lack of emotional discipline, and a lack of integrity. Neuroscientifically, gossip is tied to the reward system of the brain. The ventral striatum lights up when people share novel or socially relevant information, particularly if it involves status shifts or personal flaws in others. This means gossip can literally feel good in the brain. It delivers a temporary sense of power or inclusion. But that neurological reward is short-lived and ultimately destructive to the trust circuits that govern human relationships. When you speak negatively about others behind their back, it triggers subtle alarm systems in the minds of those who hear you. Whether consciously or not, they begin to question whether they'll be next. The hippocampus and amygdala work together to form emotional memories, and when someone experiences a conversation where another person is being dissected or ridiculed, the brain tags the speaker as a potential threat. Over time, this erodes psychological safety, and once psychological safety is compromised, respect begins to degrade rapidly. People may still be polite, but they will stop confiding in you, stop inviting you into meaningful conversations, and stop seeing you as someone who deserves a seat at the table. Gossip also reflects poorly on self-leadership. When someone habitually talks about others' flaws, mistakes, or decisions, it often reveals a deeper pattern of projection or insecurity. Instead of focusing on their own growth, their own challenges, and their own development, they fixate on the perceived shortcomings of those around them. This is a defense mechanism. It's easier to comment on someone else's chaos than confront your own. But leadership, whether formal or informal, demands the opposite. It demands that you take radical responsibility for your own energy and behavior. If you're wasting mental bandwidth tracking the mistakes or gossip-worthy moments of others, that's energy you're not spending on improving yourself or making a real impact. Respect is a byproduct of perceived alignment between values and actions. When you speak negatively about someone behind closed doors, even if the words are subtle or framed as concern, you create a disconnect between who you claim to be and how you're actually showing up. That incongruence is sensed by others, even if it's never openly addressed. The nervous system is remarkably adept at picking up on micro-signals of inauthenticity, facial tension, vocal tone shifts, micro-expressions, and energy mismatches. So even if your words seem polished or socially acceptable, the emotional tone they carry tells a different story. And when that story points toward judgment, cynicism, or superiority, it's impossible to command real respect. There's also a performance cost. People who engage in negative talk often fail to realize how much cognitive energy it drains. Every time you replay someone else's mistake in your head, every time you mentally rehearse a conversation to vent about it later, you're reinforcing a loop of emotional reactivity. These loops reduce your ability to stay present, to think clearly, and to access higher-order executive functions like strategy, innovation, and leadership decision-making. From a biological standpoint, you're keeping your nervous system in a state of low-level threat, which diminishes your ability to regulate stress and maintain mental clarity. And people notice. They may not articulate it, but they feel the tension. They sense the judgment. And slowly, they begin to distance themselves from you emotionally, energetically, or even professionally. Eliminating gossip doesn't mean ignoring real issues or avoiding necessary conversations about others' behavior. It means being deliberate about the intention behind your words. It means asking yourself whether what you're about to say serves a purpose, solves a problem, or simply feeds your ego. It means building the kind of internal discipline that allows you to pause, regulate your emotional state, and choose language that elevates rather than diminishes. That kind of discipline is rare, and because it's rare, it earns respect. When people see that you don't speak negatively about others, even when it would be easy or socially accepted to do so, they start to trust you in a deeper way. They see you as someone who can hold power without abusing it, who can witness flaws without weaponizing them, and who values integrity over momentary social gratification. Inconsistent behavior is one of the fastest ways to lose respect, even if your intentions are good. People are wired to look for patterns. From a neuroscience standpoint, the human brain is a prediction machine. The prefrontal cortex is constantly scanning the environment and social interactions for reliability, trying to answer the question, can I predict how this person will behave? When the answer is yes, even if someone is tough or direct, people feel safer around them. But when someone's behavior is unpredictable, when they shift moods abruptly, make promises they don't keep, change their stance without explanation, or act differently depending on who's watching, it activates stress responses in others. The amygdala registers this inconsistency as a potential threat. because unpredictability in social dynamics often signals danger, manipulation, or instability. Consistency isn't about being rigid or never evolving, it's about alignment. When your words match your actions, when your tone aligns with your values, and when people know what version of you they're going to get regardless of the day or situation, it builds trust. Respect grows in environments where trust is stable and predictable. Without consistency, trust cannot take root. And once people stop trusting you, it's only a matter of time before they stop respecting you. Even high performers who lack consistency eventually lose their influence because others no longer feel anchored in the relationship or confident in the outcome of interactions. Inconsistent people often don't realize the damage they're doing because they confuse intensity with presence. They might show up with enthusiasm on some days, be overly generous at times, or express care and connection in bursts, but if that behavior isn't consistent, it starts to feel performative. The brain's mirror neuron system picks up on emotional dissonance. When someone says they care but their actions don't consistently support that message, the people around them begin to disengage. They may not confront it directly, but they will begin to create emotional distance. Over time, inconsistent behavior causes others to put up mental and emotional barriers, not because they dislike the person, but because they're trying to protect themselves from the psychological whiplash that comes with unpredictability. Respect also depends on behavioral stability in high-pressure situations. When stress increases, true character is revealed. If someone becomes reactive, withdrawn, or erratic under pressure, others will begin to question their reliability, even if they are competent when things are calm. The brain watches for these patterns. Under stress, the nervous system is already heightened, and people are looking for signals of leadership and control. When they observe inconsistent emotional regulation, such as calmness turning to anger, kindness turning to blame, or confidence collapsing into doubt, it creates a ripple effect of instability. Others will either mirror that energy or try to manage around it, both of which create dysfunction and erode respect. Inconsistency also affects your internal reputation with yourself. Each time you commit to something and don't follow through, each time you say one thing and do another, you weaken your sense of personal integrity. The brain registers those moments as micro-failures, and over time, your self-trust diminishes. This impacts your decision-making, your confidence, and your ability to lead yourself and others effectively. When you stop trusting yourself, it becomes visible in your body language, your voice, and your presence. People can sense when someone is out of alignment with their own standards. It's not about perfection, but about honesty. If your behavior is inconsistent and you try to mask it or justify it, others will detect the disconnect. And when there's a gap between how you present yourself and how you actually behave, it chips away at credibility one interaction at a time. Creating consistency doesn't require being robotic or always having the right answer. It means being anchored in principles and showing up with the same core energy no matter the situation. It means honoring your word even in small things. It means making your emotional state less dependent on external circumstances. It means becoming the kind of person others can rely on not just when things are easy, but when things are hard, because that's when respect is truly earned. Inconsistency creates tension in the people around you. It forces them to guess, adjust, and protect themselves. Consistency does the opposite. It creates a foundation. It gives people the freedom to focus on what matters because they're not wasting mental energy decoding your behavior or trying to anticipate what version of you they're going to get next. Constantly seeking validation is one of the most subtle yet pervasive habits that erodes respect. On the surface, it can appear as humility or desire for connection, but underneath, it's often driven by uncertainty and a fragmented sense of self-worth. The need for external approval activates the brain's reward system, particularly the dopamine pathways associated with social reinforcement. When someone likes a post, compliments your decision, or agrees with your viewpoint, your brain experiences a small hit of pleasure. That pleasure can quickly become addictive, conditioning you to seek more of it, sometimes at the cost of your authenticity. Over time, your decision, speech, even your values begin